wondering if you could just start off maybe talking about Moment Factory and how long Moment Factory's been around, and the kind of thing you guys usually do apart from the Nine Inch Nails shows.
Moment Factory is we're a multimedia production company. We create environments, and we work with projections and creating virtual environments. We do multimedia installations. So before Nine Inch Nails, we created a lot of different events. We work a lot with Cirque du Soleil as well as many companies all across the world. Before that, we had done some projections on buildings. We created urban installations where we project stories and virtual environments on in a town square. We did an installation in Louisiana called Perkins Row, where we created 20 shows. It's a permanent installation in an urban center where people live and shop, and there's 24 hours of LED content. So we did a permanent bar with Cirque du Soleil where we had performers interacting with the video, with the scenography, with the multimedia installations, with 16 projectors all the way in a 360-degree installation. All sorts of different things. Nine Inch Nails was really the first show we did with the music industry using our interactive system that we've been developing since 2003, I believe.
So you said Nine Inch Nails was the first time you guys went into the music industry. It's the first time you actually took your technology to a moving show, a touring show. How much more work do you think that would involve for the technical crew and like the day of when you show up and you have this entire, instead of just a show to set up, you have an entire technical wonder of technology to set up? How would you feel that would affect the technical crew of the show?
For the technical crew, actually, we made it quite easy for a day-to-day basis, because as you know, with a live show, you're coming in at 8 o'clock in the morning, and every arena is different, and you have to do everything from setting up the sound system to setting up the lights to setting up the screens. So we actually built a self-contained rig that contained all the computers and all the sensors, and we had one person that was dedicated to the interactive system.
Only one person?
Only one person. And we trained that person intensively for, a couple weeks. And he was just in charge of setting up the interactive system, setting up all the sensors on stage, scanners, and everything we were using. And we set up a game, essentially, which was the test game, as we call it. And in that test game, you had every game that would be used throughout the whole show, and he could test all the different scanners involved. He could test all the different sensors, cameras, and positions of where trend might be, the lighting, and all of that. And we had actually, usually there's just sound check and then the band sound check.
Right.
And we had interactive sound check, which is a time where we checked all the sound inputs and everything, and everybody was dedicated to the interactive system, which was very unusual for all of the technicians, and they were kind of a little bit pissed off at the beginning, because we were taking up time from their precious, the minutes. But in the end, everyone really appreciated, I think, what we brought to the show.
And I think people here appreciated it too. When you mention game, what do you mean exactly? You mean like I know what you mean, but when you say game, you just mean the entire setup of the actual song, or what exactly would you describe a game as?
Game is what we essentially call each song or each intervention that we partook in. We call it a game. So essentially, it's the same thing as a video game. We're programming a way that a human or a light or any exterior input can react or interfere or control the output. Essentially, it is a game. We work with Linux, and it's a program that we developed at Moment Factory. It's a gaming software, essentially, and it takes all external inputs, so it can take inputs from the lighting, it can take inputs from a position on stage, it can take inputs from a scanner or a camera, and then we can send it to any output as well, so any normal stage output, so it can control the lights. Thereof, we can send it as a DMX signal, a MIDI signal. It can control the audio, it can control the video, as you saw in the show a lot. And we used a lot of those different elements in the show as well. We were assigned to create 5 games for Trent, for 5 different songs, and each of those songs were using different inputs and different effects, and they were completely using different sensors. And Trent's very, as you know, he really loves that each song is completely different and has a different effect. So that was one of the things that we really worked hard on doing, is really using kind of every element we could from the interactive system.
You've been mentioning Trent's input a lot. You guys have been involved since with this specific tour near the beginning. How would you say that them developing the show, them rehearsing the show at the same time as you guys were trying to catch up with them on the developing the interactive stuff, would you say that it was a challenge to keep up with what they were trying to develop at the same time as you, or?
It was definitely a challenge because it was the first time we had worked together, and so not only are we working with a new system, a new software, and he was learning a whole new instrument, being an interactive system, we also were learning a whole new creative process. It was an amazing experience, I have to say. Trent is extremely creative, innovative, as I know you all know. And yeah, it was very inspiring. We actually, because of the distance, it was quite challenging. So we ended up creating videos that explained our interactive system to him so he could understand the parameters and the limitations of the system, and also the openness of the system and the flexibility that we have. And then he came back to us with some ideas. And we tried to program those ideas as we could, or the best we could, and then we arrived there on site. Really what we focused on before arriving on site was creating a rugged system that would uphold against the tour settings. As we mentioned, it's really rugged, going off on the trucks every day and coming off, rolling off. And so we focused on that mostly, so that when we were down on so that when we were down on site during the integration period, we could really focus with Trent on the creative. Every day we would meet with him, and he would come in and test what we had programmed, and he would play around with it. And he's such a perfectionist, so he was very critical. And then we'd make some changes, and that night we'd spend the whole night, the entire night, reprogramming, because he'd be back the next day. And it was really an integrated creative process. He was in the process of rehearsing with his band at the same time. The lighting designer, Roy Bennett, who was the show designer actually as well, he was programming his lights by night as well, and so we could see what he was programming and add to it on an interactive level. We also ended up getting involved in the video design and the production thereof.
Which wasn't part of the original.
Originally that wasn't part of the agreement, but because we were there and we create video content a lot as well, Rob Sheridan was there, and he also was very busy with many things, but he had a lot of ideas, so we would jam out on some ideas and then go and take some photos of some things we discussed. We ended up doing one song where we took photos of the stage design and the LED rig, and we created a 3D environment on the LED screens of these virtual lights, programmed that to the music, and yeah, I mean, does that answer your question?
Yeah. You guys basically ended up doing way more than you were supposed to, because the whole thing was evolving at the same time as you did.